I want to tell the story of recovery. I want to show,
Yes.
hey, if you can get through all that chaos and bullshit and get over here on this side, it's so great. I don't think that part of it is out there enough.
It's
We
not.
can all talk about being under the bridge. We can all talk about
Absolutely.
jails, institutions, death. Let's talk about what's great about recovery. Why is it worth it to go through what we go through to get there? Hi, everybody. Welcome to Starve the Demon, where we believe in recovery by any means necessary. I have a very, very special guest. I have Kim with me today, and she is going to tell us her story. She's going to talk about her journey. Of course, we're not going to go into the gory details of addiction, the pain, the suffering, the sorrow. That's for everybody. We are here to talk about the joy and the freedom that comes with recovery. So, Kim, welcome to Starve the Demon. Say
Thank you
hi.
so Hi. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
It's been a while. What's your clean date? What do you do?
My name is Kim. My clean date is June 20th, 2022. So next month, by God's grace, I'll have 3 years. I am
Woohoo!
an RN during, during working hours. And that's how I came to meet Jenna here as in the recovery house. And, she was an inspiration to me then and an inspiration to me now.
Oh, how nice. Thank you. You warmed my heart and feed my ego. I love it. Can you tell us what life was like before you got sober? What did your addiction look like?
My addiction, very lonely, very isolated, very scared, and very rapid, just an inability to control my thoughts and an inability to control my behaviors, and just really lonely and really scared. Yeah.
I'm so
I'm a
sorry.
my no I, my demon loves me to be as isolated as possible so that it can get me all alone, so that it can win. So in the deepest
Oh, yeah.
holes of addiction, because this is not my first time in recovery, I've always found myself with no friends, no sponsor. My family will barely talk to me. I know today that if I'm isolating, it's dangerous for me.
You got to have that connection. And you're absolutely right. The demon feeds on that loneliness. It's one of the ways that it gets you.
Mm.
Was there a specific turning point, moment, event that was your rock bottom?
My most recent bottom, because I had a bottom in 2009, and that was when I first got sober. What happened this time and where I found my turning point was really the day that I was escorted out of my place of employment for diverting narcotics. It's really surreal. I couldn't believe that I got caught. I couldn't believe that now the jig was up and everybody was going to know what I did and who I was, and never mind the consequences that I knew were coming. But um
Yeah.
and it was a real wake up call, because also for me, I mean, that's where I was getting my dope, man. So that I can't go back to work anymore
Yeah.
either.
Now what are you going to
So
do?
yeah, real scary and
I
embarrassing
can
and
only imagine.
horrifying. And they don't let you drive home if you are suspected to be impaired at work in the medical field. So you have to call someone to come pick you up, which was my husband.
No keeping it secret.
By that point, he knew that I was struggling. I don't think he understood the depths that I was struggling. I don't think he knows how bad it was while I was at work. So when I called him to get me, I mean, it was the quietest car ride we've ever had. I don't think either of us said a word to each other on the way home. I mean, I sobbed. I
Wow.
sobbed like a baby, but we didn't talk because, I mean, what is there to say? Words escaped me in that moment for sure. I thought my entire life
Right.
was over.
But
It wasn't.
here you are. Here you are. What led you to Alcoholics Anonymous as opposed to other things you could have done?
I've always identified more as a drug addict than I have an alcoholic. Now, an addict is an addict is an addict. Alcohol is a drug. I believe all of that. But I fell in love, like we were talking the other day when we were catching up. I first started going to meetings because I was, like we're taken to in a treatment facility,
Oh,
in
you're
the,
going.
oh, you're going. That was you. And that was me being like, I'm tired. I love both the rooms. I love both the fellowships. I love the vibe in both. But the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous is what grabbed me and still grabs me to this day. That was where I saw my story, my soul, like on paper, like
Right.
you have a spiritual illness, and I was like, wow, I do.
Check out my AA Big Book study. We are starving the demon one page at a time.
I was watching some of it the other day, and even though it's a book that's from so long ago, and I know a lot of people don't identify with it first when you're still in the fog, and I get that. Like I've told newcomers, I've told people I've, sponsored, like read the stories in the back, man. Like if you can't get with like the first
Yes.
164, read those stories because it's just like going to a speaker meeting, and you'll hear something in those stories,
Yes.
I did a lot of that because it was hard for me to concentrate. I know what that's like when your mind is still so crazy. You're still detoxing. You're still coming off of stuff. It's very hard to sit down and read. I'm not a good reader to begin with,
Right.
let alone trying to get sober trying to read. I was like, this is too much.
Of course, my last rehab wasn't my first rehab. It just was the last one. And when I got my sponsor, she told me, we're going to sit down and we're going to read this entire book. And boy, she wasn't kidding, from the copyright to every word of that book we read. But she said, we're going to meet once a week and we're going to read the first 164 pages and we're going to go through the steps. She said, but what I want you to do in between those weekly meetings, I want you to read the stories in the back of the book. And I want you to find the similarities. And I want you to do it with a highlighter and a pen. And there was no doubt. It's interesting that they were written in 1939, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter if it was written by a man, like I'm a tiny little white American woman,
Yeah.
most of those stories are not written by people like me, but every single one of them resonated with me in one way or
Mhm.
another.
Absolutely. Same. And thank God for sponsors like that, until this day, I'd still read just like that with her. But now it may not be the big book because I've gone through the steps. We might read some other sort of recovery, but thank God for sponsors like that. Because that's, and you sponsor the way you were taught to sponsor. So, when I get a
Right.
hold of somebody next, you're going to sit down and we're going to read this book together because bitch, I had to do
Absolutely.
it. you know, and
Right.
the instructions are in there. The design for living is in there. You just need someone who knows it and has gone through it to show you what it's saying, sometimes in layman's terms. And we all come in with different levels of education, different levels. Some of us, a lot of us, and it's no judgment, we drop out of school in the 8th grade. That book is not easy.
Right.
So we
Mm-mm.
need a guide.
There's all those words and terms that were, whatever they meant in 1939, maybe they don't even mean that anymore in our
Cool.
current vernacular. There is a book you can get. It's called the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book Dictionary, and it's this tiny little
Cool.
white book just to clarify what the meaning at the time was, because I
Yeah,
think that's important.
that's helpful.
I love it.
Absolutely.
I
I
love
love
AA.
it.
When you first got into the rooms, what was your first impression of AA?
Um, it was really mixed right from the get go. I went to a lot of women's meetings at first. I got a culty vibe at first. I'm not gonna lie. The God thing almost scared me right back out the door. Just like they said, well, will alcohol will scare you right back in, and it did. But that was the negatives, and but then the immediate I I I I can't say from the very first meeting or the very first person that opened their mouths, but when I finally started listening,
Mm.
I was like, these are my people. These are my people. These are my people. And there's no place on earth that I feel that more, really, in general, more so than my own family, more so than if I go to work and I'm amongst colleagues that have the same, it's when I go to an AA meeting from day one until now, I'm like, it's the stories, it's the pain, it's the struggles, it's the joys, it's the how they felt when they were little kids. I went to a lot of speaker
Mm.
meetings, like in our downtown area. That's where I was taken, and YPG and all that. And the speaker meetings, I was like, oh my God, like, because I've always felt like there was something wrong.
Right.
Always. I had issues, mental health issues, everything. I was someone that showed signs of addiction very early in my life, and I was taken to psychiatrists and all that, because you can't call someone an addict at 13 years old that hasn't picked up a drug yet. But I know now that I was a spiritually sick person that I needed this. And I heard
Yeah.
that in the rooms from day one of like, wow, these people think like me, which God help them, but they think like me.
Yeah.
And it,
Right. Well, it's that addict behavior. Those behaviors manifest in so many different aspects of our lives that have absolutely nothing to do with drugs. The way that we process things, the way that we behave, the way that we react to things. You could take 100 addicts and put them in a room and just check boxes,
all of
and,
them.
and it's going to be the same for everybody. It's crazy.
I think that really helped me too, because I think, like a lot of us, I was walking in with so much shame and so much guilt, so much so that if I didn't do something with it soon, or meet somebody like me soon, or just get it out there, I was either going to stick a gun in my mouth, or OD, or just go live under the bridge permanently, because I needed to know that I wasn't the only person who had done these things that in my mind were so full of shame and so full of guilt. But to hear people just openly sharing that they did what in my mind were, not great things. Um, but oh my God, we all know what we do, right? I mean,
Right.
we're out there living the life, and we'll do whatever we got to do to get by. And we don't, and it was I mean, there's no club like it on earth. The more messed up you are, the better chances you have of making it.
That's true. That's true. And we can laugh about it now. Like, oh my God, I'm going to tell you about the 14 times I got arrested. You know?
Yes. I had my kids taken away the first time I got into recovery. I mean, all those things, like the mother's guilt, all of it. I was like, bro, I can't. And I'm just to this day,
Yeah.
I'm so eternally grateful for the feeling of, you are not alone. You are not alone. That we all did stuff but that's not, it's not who I am.
I think that's one of the greatest things you can do as a sponsor is tell your sponsee your story. Whatever it is, it's okay. And
It's
I
okay.
understand. And there's nothing you could say to me that I'm going to think less of you or judge you.
I remember one night we were griping, and you told us your story, and I mean, you blew my socks off with your story. Not only the things you had been through, but the woman that you are today, and that it was just such a testament to, if I told you all the nitty gritty, which we don't need to do here, you can guess just by talking to me, you wouldn't believe that it's the same woman sitting in front of you. You know what I mean? And
Right.
that's the
Right.
be- that's the beauty of recovery. That I think that was what I finally learned in this journey, that maybe I didn't really get the first time I tried to get sober, is like, the person I am when I'm using is not the same person I am when I'm sober. And that's not to,
Mm-mm.
not take responsibility for the things I did in my addiction. That it's just that I needed to know that I just thought I was just such a bad person, and that there was no hope for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a demon. I mean, the girl you see in front of you
Mm.
now, she's gone. She's gone. The minute I put substances in my body,
Right.
all I care about is more. And everybody better get out of the way, because I'm going to
Oh,
find
yeah.
more at any cost.
Oh, yeah. Oh, girl, I would steal your stuff and help you look for it. I mean, you know, like I,
Same. Same.
the greatest compliment I get is when I am talking to somebody and I mention things like, "Oh, well, when I was in prison," and they're like, "You weren't like, you don't seem like." Well, that's a
Mhm.
gift of recovery. The
Yeah.
gift of recovery. Listen,
Yes.
I was not a good girl. I was not a nice person.
No.
It's that Jekyll and Hyde, right?
Hmm. Yes.
And let me get your opinion on this because this is something that comes up in conversations, especially mine because all my conversations are end up talking about recovery. But um, there's a debate in the world about, you will hear normies say, oh, well, he said it when he was drunk, so that must be what he really thinks. I disagree with that. When your demon is strong and your demon's running you, you can say things to people when you're under the influence, knowing that it's going to hurt that person. Not because you actually think it's true, not because that's what you believe, but you are in pain. And so you inflict pain. So you will say something to someone that you don't mean, but you know it's going to hurt them. So that's why you say it. That's my theory. What do you think?
I agree. Fortunately, I don't remember a lot of my using history because I was using so hard, but I do remember certain really hurtful things I said to family members that I know I didn't mean. I was just in pain. And like you said, just trying to inflict pain on that person, so that they could be, misery
Right.
loves company, right? I mean, I was definitely, surrounded by
Oh,
miserable people because that's what I chose to be around.
some, because that's one of those things that people debate about, like, is addiction a choice or a disease? Is it this or is it that? It's a demon disguised as a disease that takes away your power of choice. Next. Yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
I
You know
got
what
all
I
the
mean?
answers.
Nobody would choose this, and that's
No.
coming from somebody like, like us that, I love being in recovery today, and it's given me a different appreciation for life and a way of life that I don't know that I would have had if I wasn't an addict. But at the same time, the 20 years it took me of suffering and hurting myself and hurting the people I love, I definitely would not wish that on someone. And also knowing that there isn't a cure, there's no promise. I know that. I know that so deeply because I've relapsed so many times. That I have that daily reprieve. That's all I have. That's all the big book promised me, is that I have a daily reprieve based on my spiritual condition. Period. I don't know if I'm going to
Right.
be sober in 5 years. I don't know if I'm going to be sober tomorrow, but I'm sure going to try. You know what I mean? I'm going to
But
try
just for today,
just
just
for
for
today.
today, let's talk about your very noble occupation. How did working in the medical field affect your addiction?
Because I knew I was an addict before I became a nurse, that I was going to be around a lot of narcotics. So at the time, for a lot of years, I tried to work my program as strong as I could because I knew that I was working in a profession surrounded by temptation for somebody like me. And I remember going to a meeting and someone saying, if you're working your program and you have a connection with God, always follow your dreams. And, it was one of the reasons I became a nurse after the first time I got sober, because I felt strong. I felt okay. And I did for a long time until I didn't.
I get that because when I first got into the treatment field and realized that I was going to be dealing with meds, right?
Hmm.
And for the most part, they're, they're detox meds, they're psych meds, but we get controlled substances in there.
Yeah,
We get the
sure.
phenobarbital, we get the, Suboxone, the buprenorphine, the Valium, like
Hmm.
we
The
get some heavy
Zanny. Yeah.
duty
All the
detox meds.
all
And,
benzos. Yeah.
right, to help people when they're, we're just trying to keep them alive until they
Yeah.
can get clear headed enough to actually, participate in their treatment.
Yeah.
And I will be honest, when I first took the job and realized that was a part of it, because I wasn't even thinking of that when I took the job. It didn't
Yeah.
occur to me that I would be handling meds like that. I'm not a nurse,
Yeah.
but that wasn't a legitimate concern. I get that. Like I have, here I am all by myself in this
Oh
room with
yeah.
bottles of, you know, they have street value and they can kill you. So they're just
Absolutely.
what I'm looking for.
Yeah. And the demon's always gonna whisper that. Maybe not every day, maybe every once in a while. Hey, look at these meds you've got in your hands. And with the program I can quickly divert and be like, yeah, whatever, shut up. But without a program, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when for me.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. That's very well said. Very well
Yeah.
said. And, there is, just so the audience knows, there's very strict protocols when it comes to handling these medications. Like, if,
Yes.
if half a pill disappeared, and because, and I'll tell you this too, whenever I'm training new people and I'm going over with them the medications and the protocol and how we do,
Yeah.
I will tell you straight up, there's not going to be a pill missing on my shift because it is well known that I'm an addict. And of course, because I work in treatment, everybody that works there is an addict, An addict cannot have a pill missing because that's going to be the first thing you think. Oh, she done went off the rails. No,
Yeah.
can't have it. There, we will search the, nobody's leaving this room So all them
And so
pills are accounted for.
are accounted for. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Not on my shift, baby.
No, not today.
Yeah, but we double count, like, like it's a whole thing. We make sure that we are in compliance and that,
Oh yeah, no, and you guys,
nothing.
I mean, I remember watching you
It's a
guys and
big
all the
deal.
lock boxes and all the security measures that are taken. I mean, you're addicts working in recovery, surrounded by addicts that are getting sober. I mean, there's a real potential for danger there for people to reach out and just, I mean, we
Yeah,
if yeah, I can see it. I can see you gotta be careful for sure.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now, did being in the medical field, did that help you hide your addiction? Did it make it harder for you to get help?
Looking back now, I think it definitely helped me hide it, and it made it harder to get help because, at the time when I started relapsing was the beginning of COVID. So we were all
Mm,
very isolated, and so the first thing that so I was isolated from my recovery people, family, my sponsor. I wasn't going to meetings. We couldn't go to meetings. A lot of even the clubhouses were closed. So it all
right,
happened, just textbook. No one in my job knew that I had ever been in recovery, that I had ever struggled with addiction at my previous hospital. There was a few people that like, we talked shit every now and again, and I was like, "Oh, I was a wild one back then," but that was like, you know, that was like as far as I went with it. Not that like, yeah, I've been to rehab multiple times and done really bad shit.
right,
I never got that far. So it was very easy to hide it. And I think it made it all the more shocking that when the news did come out and it's like I said, I was escorted out and I was a supervisor of a large medical surgical floor, 48 beds, 8 RNs, 4 nursing assistants. I was responsible for all of them. So for me to go missing, people
wow,
noticed. And I had worked there for 6 years. So when I never came back, I mean, obviously they all heard through the grapevine what had happened. They were shocked that I was capable of diverting meds and being impaired at work. So, and it made it harder to get help because
right.
I knew about IPN. I knew about, the monitoring programs for medical professionals. I definitely did not know that it was going to be like the FBI and CIA combined for the next 5 years of my
Mm.
life.
IPN is unique to Florida. There are different programs like it. I think in other states, not every state has it. Will you tell the people listening, watching, what IPN is?
Absolutely. IPN is Intervention Project for Nurses. That's the name in Florida. It's called different things in different states, but it's basically a monitoring program for any medical professional, well, nurse, I should say, because there's other ones for physicians and higher degree people. There's some for doctors, CRNAs, nurse practitioners. This one is specific to RNs, LPNs, CNAs, anyone that has an issue with substance abuse, um, and has had it impact their career. If you were to have a wild night and you don't consider yourself an alcoholic, but you get a DUI, they're going to send you to IPN. So the monitoring program is a standard 5-year contract. You are monitored heavily. You pay for all of that out of pocket. Urine tests, hair tests, blood tests. Um, you have a weekly support group that is required, that we do on Zoom. We have quarterly reports that are due. And then I have a breathalyzer that I do 4 times a day for, these 5 years. Not everybody gets that, but I have it.
Well,
So
I see it from the treatment side. I'm not necessarily up to snuff on what all you go through. 4 times a day.
4 times a day for 5 years. It doesn't matter if and if you go on vacation to another country, you have to take it with you, and it doesn't matter what the time zones are, you have to keep it on the Eastern time zone. And again, all of this is paid for out of pocket. When when we get new people in our IPN support group every week that we do, there's a long period of adjustment. And what I've learned to say that helped
Mm,
me is that this is probation for nurses. Okay, you can call it a support group, you can call it a monitoring group. This is probation. I effed around and I found
yeah.
out Um, and I'm lucky to be able to practice. I'm lucky to be able to practice as a nurse. And this is what allows me to keep my nursing license and also for the public to know that they're safe and that I'm safe. Do I like everything about it? No. Do I think it's run 100% great? No. But when you're in my position, just like anyone in probation, I don't have many choices. It's this or I don't get to be a nurse. I don't have to do this monitoring program. All of us get a choice. Any medical professional that's faced with this type of monitoring program, we don't have to do it, but we have to do it if we want to keep our license and keep our career. So, for now,
Right.
I'm choosing to still be a nurse and follow the rules.
5 years seems like a long time, but if you compare that 5 years to the 20-year career you're going to have, if the 20-year using you had, that 5 years,
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world. You could do anything for 5 years.
No,
I've been
yeah.
on probation. It will be 10 years in November, and I'm actually getting off of probation finally on Thanksgiving Day is my
Wow. I
last
didn't
day of
even know you
probation.
were still on.
Yeah, because you know why? Because it's just become an inconvenience for me at this point. Like I barely
Yeah.
get monitored. Like when I first get
Yeah.
out of prison, they're on you. They're on
They're
you
on
like
you.
white on rice.
Yeah.
Everything you do, everywhere you go, la, la. Over the years, that gets less and less and less until eventually they're like, "Oh yeah, I forgot. You have to go over. I forgot. I was supposed to come by last month. I'm here now. How you doing? Great. I'll see you next time." Like it's because I am not all of my criminal activity, all drug related,
Yeah.
right? Not necessarily drug charges, but all drug related. Had I not been high, I would not have done those things. I wouldn't have ended up in jail. I wouldn't have ended up in
Absolutely.
prison or on probation. So I quit doing drugs. I quit committing crimes. I quit getting in trouble. Like I say, I'm
Because
Irish. We drink and we fight. I quit drinking. I quit fighting.
hey,
Yeah.
I have to have that self-talk with myself when it comes to days that being an IPN it seems like the most horrible thing in the world, or they're just on you, or you just feel like, oh my God, like but at the same time, and it's not just to like, sound nice here and say the right thing. I really mean it. I there's been an I've had a lot of things happen in these last 3 years get of this recovery, what will be 3 years that I'll be honest, I'm kind of grateful I knew I was going to be held accountable because I don't know. There are days, real pain, real life showing up on life's terms, and knowing
Mm-hmm.
in the back of my head, because when I do get those fleeting thoughts, that I know I will be caught in the matter of 24 hours because of the urine test, because of the breathalyzer. It's kept me accountable. I'll be humble
Yeah.
enough to tell you that today, man. I went hard and long with this disease, and every time I went back out, girl, this shit got stronger. This demon got stronger. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel it now more than ever that I've got to do all the things we got to do to stay sober. And as much as I don't love being in this monitoring program, I was talking to my sponsor about it the other day. The day I get off, I mean, I'm halfway through it. It's going to be a scary day for me.
I like what you said about the fleeting thought. It used to be if I had the thought, I was going. The minute I thought about drinking or drugging, I'm calling dude or I'm going to liquor
Hmm.
store, whatever it is I'm doing. Now I have fleeting thoughts,
Hmm.
thoughts that flee. I'm not stuck in it. That mental obsession of I'm thinking about whiskey. I have to get to the liquor store and I have to get whiskey, or I want to get high. I got to call the guy. I'm 6 years clean. Still the thought crosses my mind, right?
Hmm.
But that's the difference. Now it crosses my
Yeah.
mind. It doesn't hit my mind and stay there until I have no choice but to go and act upon it. It just crosses my mind. And
Hmm.
I can very quickly remember why it is I don't do that.
Yeah.
And the nightmare that my life would be if I gave in. And
Yeah.
so I don't. And I do what I need to do. I start feeling gratitude. I say a prayer. I call somebody. I mean, I know I look like I got it all together, but I'm still just the same old addict I ever was. Now I have the tools to not give in, not
Yeah.
let that demon get strong. I'm a
Yeah.
proud demon starver.
Because it's one of the most powerful forces on this earth. I mean, we know that, right? And I mean, we that's I think why we're asked so deeply to find a power greater than ourselves, because we got to find something stronger than this demon, because this demon is stronger than a love of a parent for a child, or the love of a
Mm,
spouse. It doesn't care about love. It doesn't care about family. It doesn't care about connection. It just wants you dead.
yeah.
First, it wants you to suffer, though. It wants you to suffer a little bit,
Mm.
maybe a lot of it,
You and
and then
everybody
die.
around you. Yeah, a
Everybody.
lot of it. Absolutely. Well said. I know we lost a lot of people during COVID, not just to COVID, but because of that isolation and the meeting houses being shut down. Thank God for Zoom. I still do Zoom. The online thing has, I think, helped a lot of people. And there's a lot of people that got sober during COVID. And so that's all they know is that way of doing it. But for a lot of old timers that, all they knew were the houses, we lost a lot of people during COVID, you know.
We did. We sure
And I
did.
know for nurses and doctors, that was a really, really hard time um to be going through that. And God bless you for getting through it and making it and being over here on this side now. I just want to say that.
Thank
Being a nurse, did you ever feel pressure to have it all together, that you couldn't falter, you couldn't fall, it wasn't okay for you to have a problem like this?
But I definitely felt like that then, where you're a professional and you have a college degree, and here you are taking care of other people and saving lives, and how could you possibly have something like this so wrong with you that's so taboo, and that in the
Mm,
medical field and being a nurse, I've heard it my whole career. I've been a nurse almost 10 years. I wish I could say that it was different, but I haven't seen a lot of change in regards to how addicts, alcoholics, or mental illness as a whole, there's not a lot of empathy for it from doctors or nurses. So me knowing that I had this big ugly disease that nobody really has
mm,
any empathy for, it definitely didn't make me want to share it. It definitely helped
right,
it wanted me to keep my nurse mask on that much harder, of like, well, maybe I can manage. I was still trying to manage, still trying to control the disease, even though I was getting high in the bathroom at work. How was I going to tell people that now I'm this RN that's shooting up in the bathroom?
right.
But that's why I'm so grateful that I hate to keep giving these people credit, but I can't, where you're sent to a facility for medical professionals. I was so humbled when I went there to find, I was like, oh my God, not only, like we were saying in the beginning, not only am I not alone as an addict, but now I'm not alone as a nurse addict, as a medical professional
Right.
addict. Wow, there's tons of us, and wow, there's doctors here, and there's nurse practitioners, and there's CRNAs, and they're doing all the same stuff I was. And I was like, oh, thank God I can let this mask down finally, because it's just another mask that I wore of like, I couldn't possibly be this damaged, right? I'm a nurse, and that's such bullshit, man. It's bull.
Because this disease does not discriminate. I would think, and probably most people would think, and if I'm wrong, tell me in the comments. Hit me up. I would like to think that those in the medical profession would be more empathetic, would be more understanding of this disease. And I get that they're not. Have you been to
Hmm.
301 House?
Yeah.
Okay. When I used to live over there, that was my home group. Nursing students would get
Yes.
sent there
Yes.
and have to sit in on the meetings. We
Yeah.
loved it. Let us tell you all about it. Let us give you some understanding about it. I just feel like now those people are going to go off and be awesome nurses because they took the time to see it from our side and
Hmm.
see and hear the shares. And they ask questions. We couldn't wait to answer their questions. Tell them
Oh,
all
I
about
love
it.
seeing the nursing students. Yeah, you're like, come on, let's do it. Like, I want you to know
Yeah,
the amount of patients that you will take care of as a medical professional, whether you're a nurse or a CNA or a respiratory, whatever you are, you're not gonna not be able to cross paths with people that suffer from addiction, or the medical issues
absolutely.
that their addiction has caused them, that their organs
Mm-hmm.
are failing, or the mental health issues that they have combined with their addiction issues. Or we all know about all the wonderful veterans out there that struggle with addiction and mental health issues. There's just no way you're not going to take care of people like this. And it's my hope too, as passionate as you are about recovery, maybe one day God will show me the way to open the doors and break down the barriers for the medical community, because the education that they're given is not enough, and they don't understand it, and it's still just like they just want to treat them and street them. That's what they said. Treat them and
Right.
street them.
Yeah.
Get them out.
If you don't get to the underlying root of the problems, you will go back and use again because you don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
Would you say that being sober now, your sobriety, has that changed the way that you show up for your patients?
Oh yeah. The most important part is that I'm there, mind, body, and spirit, and that I'm able to give, all of myself and my knowledge and my experience, and a clear mind when I'm taking care of people. Because I wasn't always that way at work, because of this addiction, and that although at work I've this time around in a new facility, because it took me so long because of some of the things that have happened to me to get the job that I have now. I'm holding on to my anonymity for right now when it comes to my coworkers. But when I meet patients, and not every patient I meet that's struggling with addiction, the ones that kind of seem like they're done, the ones that kind of seem like they're listening, of like, hey man, like I've been right where you're at. Like I love opening up to
Right.
people like that when I can, and they kind of look at you like, like you're my nurse. Like, what do you mean? And then like you just kind of like you talk our language, and their eyes open up, and they get that moment too, and like they have that moment in a hospital bed, man, of like, I'm not alone. And
Right.
that's
Right.
that's
And
pretty and if that's all I gave them for that one moment, if that's all I ever gave anyone, of like for 1 minute you knew that you weren't alone, then I did something right.
that is awesome. You're inspirational. I can't believe that you're not planting seeds that don't bloom somewhere. We don't get to see them bloom, right? We don't get to
Yeah,
know
yeah,
how we touch people. But when you can take a moment like that with somebody and they can look at you and go, "Oh my God," they see that, hey, here's somebody that understands, and clearly you had to have been there to understand it. And
yeah.
here you are, a angel. Nurses are angels. I don't care. You know what? Tell me I'm wrong. I dare you to tell me I'm wrong. you know, for you to be helping people and loving on somebody, and I'm sure you have touched some lives. I'm sure of it. So, which out of the 12 steps challenged you the most and why?
Step 9, actually making amends. And having the sponsor that
Okay.
I had, by all costs, you are going to give it your all to make sure that this is face to face. And if time goes by and if years go by, and thank God I didn't have the sponsor that made me stop at step 9. I kept going. She knew I needed to humble my ass and talk to these people face to face. And then, of course, if not, then, you go down that road with your sponsor of writing letters or saying prayers or whatever you need to do to find closure. Some of those I looked forward to. Other ones I was really fearful. I was really fearful. Like I went last year to the hospital that I was escorted out of. And that was the last
Mm.
time I had been to that hospital, was when I was escorted out of it. I didn't enter it this time. I asked some of the old nurses I used to work with if I could meet them after their shift to make an amends to them face to face. Girl,
Now, when did you tell them that's what you were doing, that you were coming to make amends, or did you just say, "Hey, I'd like to see you"?
I did. The two of them luckily have had family members struggle with addiction, so they've heard these concepts before, I kind of left it like,
Right.
there's just a few things I want to say to you, and if you'll just give me that time, I'd be very grateful. Um, but being in that location with them, that I hadn't been in their presence in, like 2 years. Girl, that was tough, And I that night I went to a meeting and shared about it, but the freedom and the grace that came from it, like when I walked away and drove away from that hospital that day, like I think it was the last piece I needed to forgive myself. Great, they were just like, we just you look so good. We just want to see you be happy, if there's anything you ever need. And even though those relationships aren't the same anymore, because you know how it is when you lose touch with coworkers, it just stuff happens, but they were great. And because I know a lot of people in recovery struggle with this step. And I know a lot of people
Mm.
just are like, they just kind of want to skip over it, right? And I don't want to make the amends, and I don't want to say I'm sorry. And I'm like, Bro, whoever told you that you're saying you're sorry said it all wrong. That's not what you're saying.
Who wants to hear I'm sorry? How many times have we said I'm sorry? Nobody wants to hear that crap out of us anymore. Listen, I recognize the 9-step call. I've got some friends of mine that have gone back out. They've relapsed, and I've tried to be there for them. And I eventually get to a point. I'm like, listen, when you are making your 9-step calls, I promise I'll answer the phone. I'm a big believer in I've done everything I could do. And now, if you're not going to do what's necessary to get yourself straight, I can't get wrapped up in it. I have to protect my sobriety. I have said to people, listen, I love you. Yeah. But I cannot continue doing this with you. I recognize a 9-step call when I hear it, you know, because I've said so many of them. I was 45 when I was doing my 4-step. That's 40. That's 4.5 decades.
Yeah.
You know?
Of people.
So
yeah.
I made a lot of 9-step calls.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. Yeah.
And you're right. It's not about apologizing.
No.
It's about what can I do to repair this relationship? What, if anything, can I do to repair this relationship? And then you do whatever that is. Or you F5. They might tell you there's nothing you can do. All right, well, you know, here's my number. Call me.
Like this speaker that I love in AA, Polly P. I remember she always said, she's like, you don't know shit about being accountable or responsible. And when I went to some of these people for the first time in my life, the first time I did a 9-step, the 10th time I've done a 9-step, because it's, you know, I've done it a few times. Sometimes it's the first time these people have actually heard me say with my mouth accountability for the things that I did that hurt them, that I'm actually owning it for the first time. And I mean, even though I knew what I did in my head, I never said it out loud because pride and ego won't allow that, right? But the power of me saying it to them, and even if they're not going to forgive me, even if they don't want me to never see me again, at least they heard me say, like, I know that I hurt you, and this is how, and how can I make it right? That's like when I've tried to sponsor people through that step, I'm like, please, please erase I'm sorry out of your language when it comes to that step.
I'm sorry. Nobody cares if you're sorry. You done said you're sorry 1,000 times. And then just went out and did the same damn thing over again. Oh, you're sorry? Are you sorry? I know you're sorry. You stay sorry. I don't know.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear that crap. You know, I done said it. I can't tell you how many times. And I was sorry. Listen, every time I was sorry. But it didn't change nothing.
It didn't change.
You know, so nobody wants to hear that crap out of us. You know, who cares that you're sorry? Nobody cares. And what? That does not change the price of rice. I need that laptop that you stole and sold for drugs. I need my laptop back. You being sorry doesn't get my laptop back.
Yeah, doesn't help.
I always say the 9-step promises, right? We don't get, those are 9th-step promises. Those come quickly or slowly, depending on how quickly or slowly you make your amends. We don't front those. You don't get the promises way back at step 4. No, you gotta. Those are 9th-step
you gotta
promises.
do the work. You gotta do the work.
Gotta do the work. All those promises come true, and they do. They really do. And
they do.
And
they really,
all the stuff,
really do.
All the cliches, all the crap that you walk in the door going, what the hell is this cult? I drank the Kool-Aid. I drank the Kool-Aid.
I drank
and
it.
I believe it all.
Same, girl. All the easy does it. Live and let live. One day at a time.
I let her live.
I'm right with you. I drank all the Kool-Aid, and like, you know, I love when people say that in AA. It's like, you know, they brainwashed you. Well, my brain needed washing.
My brain needed some washing. You sure right.
It needed some bleach.
Right.
It needed all the things.
Well, I have in my main bathroom in my house, I have a big like art piece. It's the Serenity Prayer. It takes up half the damn bathroom. Yeah. You can't go pee in my house without getting some recovery.
I love that. I love that.
They call me Big Book Thumper, Recovery Nazi. You sure right. Yep.
Yeah.
And
wear it
what?
like a badge. And what?
I sure do. Because I tell you what, when I was ripping and running and Hurricane Jenna
I wore that like a badge. I thought that was something special. You know what I mean? I thought it was, that was one of my many masks, right? Of like being this like tough chick from New York with all this attitude and wanting to fight people and put my hands on people and act like a thug. And,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, that's the mask you wear in the lifestyle that we're in because you have to survive where you're going to get
Right.
drugs. And if you act like, we all know, but that wasn't really me, I mean, I spent a life
Right.
trying to figure out who's Kim. My sponsor always says that. She says, I'm just plain old and her first name, and I love when she says
Yeah.
that because even today when she says it, I'm like, I'm still trying to figure out who plain old Kim is, but like I kind of like her, and I'm not putting on all those
Right.
masks of I'm a thug or I'm a nurse or this is it. This is it.
Right. Right. Like yeah, like I don't need to be any one thing. I need to just be,
I just need to
and
be,
just
man.
be.
Yeah, just
Yeah. Oh,
be. And
I
it's
got my
enough.
hippy dippy ways about me.
Oh, I love it. That was the first thing I was like, I dig her.
Some people don't like me. Anyway, how do you personally define spiritual awakening? And what did that look like for you?
Mm. I love the appendix for spiritual experience in the big book. I love that, how I have interpreted it and read it with my sponsor and others as, that it will create a psychic change. My entire perception will change. I definitely also had it like it says, mine was gradual. I did not have a burning bush. I did not, for me, spirituality and religion, two different things. For some people, they're the same. No judgment. It's just not my journey. They're separate. I'm not a religious person. I try to be a spiritual person. I love the saying of, spirituality is for those who have been to hell and religion is for people,
Hmm.
that don't want to go to hell.
I'm familiar with that phrase. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's educational variety for me, definitely. And it happened where my perception of life and the people around me and how I viewed everything and everyone, including myself and this higher power that I'm trying to connect to, everything changed, in addiction and prior to addiction or just being a dry drug. For me, everything's dark, scary. The world's out to get me. Everything's a conspiracy. I don't trust anyone. I can't see
Mm,
the beauty in anything or anyone. And F it all. The spiritual side of it for me, it's complete psychic change, right? I try to see the beauty in everything. I try to give everybody grace. I look at the world differently. I look at myself differently. I look at people differently. And that's why I love that definition so much because it breaks it down. It broke it down in a way for me that I could understand that I have to have a different outlook. My perception has to change and I have to work to keep that perception because if I start sliding again, which I have, I go back to those old ways of thinking. That's my addict thinking. That's the demon, that this perception I got that changed, it takes work and it takes maintenance because I can easily go back to the world sucks and everybody sucks in it. So let's get hot.
good karma and a nice ass. Constant maintenance.
I love that.
It's
It's
true.
true.
Have your views on the disease model of addiction changed since working the AA program? Like,
AA is what taught me that this was a disease. Reading the doctor's opinion and reading the big book and going to treatment, of course, that helps too, to help you realize that you had a disease. First time I went to treatment, I was 25. I mean, I went when I was like 17, but that was like a joke. But like, I just thought I was mentally ill. I thought I was crazy. I thought I was a crazy person that was never going to be right. And then once I came into the medical field, I always use that when I'm like going toe to toe with somebody about this being a disease. A disease
mm,
in any other form, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, well, they get diagnosed because they all have the same symptoms, right?
right.
And they usually have a similar treatment and they usually have a similar prognosis for that. If you do these things, this is what you can expect. Like if you have diabetes, eat right, do better things, take insulin, you'll live. Well, for us, It's the same thing with addiction, man. Like, and that's what's so humbling about it. And being in AA, I mean, it taught me this is a disease. It's a disease of mind, body, spirit, right? And I got to work on all three of them. And but my fellows who all have this disease all have the same symptoms. You know, the treatment that we use and suggest with these, if you choose a 12-step fellowship, is usually the same. Work these steps, you'll get better. And,
Mm-hmm.
the prognosis is usually the same. So people like us, if we stay in recovery and we stay connected to something, our prognosis is usually pretty good. If I try to do this on my own, I'm going to die.
Right. Or if I think I could just willpower it or white knuckle it. Somebody asked me today if I thought it was possible to get true sobriety without working a 12-step program. And I said,
Yeah.
sure. However, that all that means is you just don't work the 12-step program. You still have to do something. With
Yeah.
the 12 steps, the first step is the only one that mentions alcohol. And it's the only one you have to do 100% correctly.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give it 100%. The whole rest of it, the other 11 steps, are how we get rid of the old crap that we've been dragging around, how we learn to live in today, and how we make a better tomorrow, and how we come to that spiritual experience, that psychic change that allows us to be different, because the same person will drink again. There has to be a change within that person. Now, that change absolutely can come without a 12-step program. It can come through
Sure.
church, psychiatry, meditation, yoga,
Mm-hmm.
religion, any number of ways. But what you're looking for is that psychic change.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes to get and stay clean, right?
Yeah.
How
I
you
agree.
get to that psychic change, there's any number of things. And that's what I'm doing on this channel, is I'm talking to people that have got substantial sobriety with things other than 12 steps. Sometimes it's just contempt prior to investigation. Whatever it is, if it's blocking them from doing the work and getting the benefits, then let's find something else. But
Yeah.
find something. You can't think to yourself, well, I quit doing drugs, so everything's fine now. No, that's a symptom. Drugs are a symptom. They're not the problem. The wrong
100%.
solution. If I preach anything, it's that.
That's what caught my attention the minute you started this channel, the minute you started talking to people, recovery by any means necessary, just because we're sitting here and yeah, we can shake our heads and we vibe with the big book and just, the appendixes. That's fine. That's part of my journey. But like, I'm so with you on like, whatever you do to create that psychic change in your life, like I'm here. If it can
Right.
starve that demon and give you joy and happiness and peace in your life today, if it's running 5 miles a day, if it's going to mass, if it's praying to Buddha, whatever it is, I'm happy for you because I've tried a little bit
Right.
every.
There's no wrong way to get clean. If it works for
No,
you and that's what you do, yay,
good
sing it
for
on a
you.
mountain.
I've
I don't think she expected me to say yes. Because I am a 12 step. Like, that's what worked for me. And
to work for me.
I'll
Yeah,
tell everybody that'll listen. Meeting
same.
steps and service. I got a sponsor. I work my steps. I do service work. I stay clean. Yay.
Yeah,
That's what worked for me.
yeah,
Do I think it'll work for you? Absolutely. I think it'll work
same.
for you.
Of
I
course,
also don't think it's the only way. And I get that for some people, they're just not gonna embrace it and work it. Okay, well then let's not give up.
yeah.
Let's
Let's not give
find
up.
the thing that is gonna work,
Yeah, because the
So
the disease will win. It will. You know what I mean? If you're
absolutely.
if you're on your own and without anything or anyone or any resources or anything, it will win. Like we were saying from the beginning, it wants you alone and it wants you scared. Because that's when it's
Right.
the strongest, baby. That's when it's ready to roll. It's ready to jump.
Yes. It makes you weak so it can get strong. I have the benefit of having explored all these different paths of recovery, right?
Yeah.
And I have had sponsees in AA. I've had NA sponsees. If you come to me and you tell me you want me to sponsor you, and you tell me I want to work NA, I'd like you to sponsor me. Okay. We're going to get the NA book out, and everything I say to you is going to be based out of the NA literature,
Yeah.
right? I'm not going to be throwing AA in there and this in there and whatever. No, I'm going to sponsor you based on the Narcotics Anonymous program. If
Hmm.
you come to me and say, I want to do AA, I'd like you to sponsor me. Okay, get our big book out. Everything that is AA, what the literature, what the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is, that's what we're going to do. Da, 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 da. I could sponsor in either one of those, right?
Yeah.
My experience is such that I can do that. As a recovery coach,
Hmm.
I'm not pushing AA. I'm not pushing NA. I'm pushing recovery
Recovery.
and whatever that
Yeah.
looks like. Whatever that, how can I help you get clean and stay that way? That's all I
Yeah.
care about. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So, and not everybody can do that. Some people only know AA, or they only know NA, or they only know
Hmm.
Recovery Dharma, or they only know Smart Recovery. It's great.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. You don't have to know more than that. You know, I just
Yeah.
am happen to have this particular
More
knowledge and
knowledge.
experience and
Yeah.
this passion, you know, so that I can do that. That's part of, you know, when I got my recovery coach certification, that's when you take the classes,
Yeah.
that's what you're learning is all these different modalities so that you are able, if somebody, you know, like if I was doing recovery coaching at the rehab, but if that was my role there, I would get to speak to each client, talk to them, see what was maybe
Hmm.
going to work for them, set them up with resources. You know, I wouldn't sponsor you. I'd get you a sponsor. I wouldn't,
Yeah.
you know, I would show you where the meetings are. I'd connect you over here and connect you over there. So it's really the most awesome probably thing for me because
Yeah.
I need that. I need to be able to go, well, that won't work. Let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it gives you that much more, base to help people with. I because it makes it more, all that more possible to the person that's just trying to get clean, that's overwhelmed, that is hearing all this for the first time. And we've been there. We know how almost every rehab you go to in the United States, you're going to be taken to some kind of 12-step meeting because that's what works for most. And it's a lot. It's like
Right.
a whole nother language to learn. And people are talking about books you never heard of and people you never heard of
Mm-hmm.
and things you've never heard of and in recovery. So to have somebody just kind of like just take it down a notch and you hear these things like if you don't do this, you're gonna die. And you're just like,
Yeah.
bro, like
Yeah.
that can't be the
Listen.
approach. I don't think that's the best approach
Mm-mm.
anymore. Like I'm with you. Like you're already overwhelmed enough. If you're like 7 days clean and you're still
Mm.
detoxing and your family hates you and you don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of and you're going to meetings for hope and people are telling you if you don't
Yeah.
do this, you're gonna die. Like that's we're probably
Yeah.
not helping anybody like that. Like there's
People forget what it's like to be the newcomer. They forget what that
yeah.
first meeting. I will tell people 1,000%. This is what I think. If you fearlessly and thoroughly work the program, you will not relapse. If you
Yeah.
don't, you might. And I say it like that because there are people that don't fearlessly and thoroughly work the program and they don't
Mm,
relapse. So you can't say if you don't do this, you're going to, no. The likelihood of you relapsing is great.
sure.
It is, it is possible
Yeah.
that you won't relapse. It's probable that you will.
Yeah.
But if you fearlessly and thoroughly, and that's if you work the program, you won't relapse. No, no, no. You have to fearlessly and thoroughly work the program. You can't,
Program.
secrets keep you sick. You have to tell it. You
Absolutely.
have to actually work. You're going to fuck around
Yeah.
and find
You
out.
gotta really
Yeah.
work it. Yeah. It's gonna
You
happen.
know, yeah. So yeah, because people are, oh, it doesn't work for me. No,
No.
you didn't work for it.
Yeah. You
And
didn't,
that's my true heart of hearts.
oh,
You
I
know, I
believe that
believe that.
true. Wholeheartedly. You know what I mean? Because it's very easy, we know, to come into the rooms and just kind of be there on vacation. If
Mm-hmm.
you do choose a 12-step fellowship, it's very easy to say, "Oh yeah, I have a sponsor. Oh yeah, I've worked the steps." You know, And
Yeah.
but have you though? Because you're really the only one that's missing out. That you're the one that's hurting, not me, by not
Right. Right.
taking these suggestions. You are the one who will ultimately suffer, and whether or
Yeah.
not you work them thoroughly is going to be, it's going to, we all know, I mean, becomes evident in your life. It becomes evident in your behaviors. It becomes evident in the way you treat people, the way you treat yourself. If you're still just running around causing everybody around you harm and you're just kind of just acting like
Mm-hmm.
an animal still, because I have been there, I've done it myself, I've watched others do it, and it's not pretty, man, because you might as well go get high if that's
Mm-mm.
how you're going to act. I mean, I'm sorry to say it like
Listen,
that, but
you can tell if somebody's working their program. You can tell.
100%,
You know, you can
100%.
tell me all day long. I can look at you and tell you not. You know,
Yeah.
but I think the same thing can be said for any program.
Oh, yeah.
If
Oh,
you
yeah.
fearlessly and thoroughly work the program, you won't relapse. If you don't, you might. It could be Celebrate Recovery. It could be Smart Recovery. It could be Dharma Recovery. It doesn't matter. If you actually follow the programs are
Hmm.
sound. You know, it's, like my husband says, people aren't sound. I don't know if you got to watch his interview or not, but he's like, I wasn't sound. I was Captain Half-Ass. Well, that makes
I
sense.
loved it. Yeah, he's so down to earth, man. Just saying how he feels. I really enjoyed watching it. I did.
It's my baby.
I love it. And
Yeah.
I mean, I've only seen you two together once, but I was like, I felt the vibe for sure. And
Oh,
not easy keeping a marriage going in recovery. It's not. I did, if anyone would have told me that I was going to be the one to
wait.
relapse in this marriage and that it wasn't going to be him, and I know that sounds terrible, I would have been like, you're crazy. You know what I mean? And I was
Yeah.
so scared when that happened that he would leave me. That
Right. Yeah.
when I had to go to treatment, I was unemployed for 6 months. I'm the breadwinner here, so that was horrible time for. Oh, and but he was like, as long as you're doing what you need to do to be sober, like I'm not leaving you. Like I knew who you were when I
Aw.
married you, and
Aw.
that meant everything to me. So even though as hard as this is, and as scary as it can be, because we can't work each other's programs, and he doesn't work AA perfect. He doesn't do all the things. He doesn't have a sponsor, right? He's not checking all the boxes right now, but he is
Yeah.
a person trying to be a better person and not put substances in his body. And, you
Yeah.
know, he's a testament to recovery by any means necessary. He doesn't do this the way you and I might be doing it, but we know when you're in a relationship with someone in recovery, who am I to tell him how to work his program? I can't. I'm not allowed to.
Mine's the same way. That's why when I said that video, like, listen, he doesn't do it, but his demon is starving. And we
Yeah.
used to rip and run together. I don't know if you saw mine when I told my story. A lot of crazy, crazy. But we have now made it through that, and we're
Full
over here
circle.
on this side now. It's
It's
awesome, and I
beautiful.
I wouldn't trade him for nothing. Sometimes like that. Sometimes you get lucky. What's something you had to lose in order to gain recovery?
I'm gonna have to go with ego, man. I'm gonna have to go with ego. I pride myself, like a lot of women do, on being independent in every area of my life. I'm not going to ask you for help with my last dying breath. That's how my mom is. Those are the types of women I was raised around. I would rather run down the street naked on most days than ask somebody for help. And I mean that to a fault, to a fault. I'm aware of that
I get
for
it.
me today. So having to put down the ego and know that I can't be sober without asking for help. And I won't stay sober if I'm alone. In Kim's little bubble here, I gotta have women in recovery, man. I gotta have a sponsor. That's the only thing that's ever worked for me in my life. So putting the ego away and asking for help and saying I can't do this alone. It was hard every time I came back. It's easier now, it's easier now because I trust and love the people I'm around, but it's even when I'm going through something in life and I got to put the ego down and say, I don't know how to handle this. I don't know how to handle this.
Right,
I
right.
don't know how to act. I don't know what to do. I have teenage kids. I'm going through weird things. I have marriage problems. It's not easy for me till this day to pick up the phone and say, and those are things that I used to get high over. It's still not easy for me to say, hey, I need help. I don't know, can you help me? I hate that. Oh, it's still hard to say that. Oh, but I'm practicing. I am
Yeah,
practicing.
it's good. I love to talk about my theories, right? Like I could solve all the world's problems. I find that people that have low self esteem tend to have really big egos, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like, look at me. Ah, those people really have very low self esteem. I feel like there's a direct correlation between the ego and self esteem. Like
Yeah.
can, when your ego is less, your actual self esteem and confidence and the way that you interact with the universe is better. I don't,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like, but if those
No,
people
it's
that are all ego, very low self esteem, and it's like that mask that they put on to say, no, I'm fine, I'm great, I'm great, buddy.
yeah, you're not doing so
I,
hot.
right, I could see you. Yeah, but so
It's
just
hard.
things you mentioned, ego, and of course the ego death, go all the way back to Carl Jung, and the
Sure.
shadow work. Do we ever talk about shadow work?
I don't think so.
It's a psychological thing. Like, who Carl Jung is, right?
Yes.
The
The psychiatrist.
psychiatrist. Well, he promotes this thing called shadow work, and I highly recommend that you look it up, look into it. It's very much in line with what we do with the 4-step.
Mm.
The theory is that we have our shadow self, and our shadow self is that part of us that starting in early childhood like protects us from the world, right?
Mm.
And all of our memories, all of our trauma, all of anything negative, the shadow keeps it for us, right?
Oh,
And what
wow.
happens is that as we mature into adulthood, those things like, and usually the shadow misunderstands. Like if you think about the world through a 3-year-old's eyes, right? You don't really understand what's happening, right? Like if mom and dad are fighting or
Yeah.
something bad happens, children will internalize it. They'll try to make sense of it, but they really don't have reference points. So however they internalize it, it kind of gets stuck there. So when we're adults and we have panic attacks or we have social anxiety or
Hmm.
all these type of things that our coping mechanisms are jacked up, right?
Yeah.
It's because as children our shadow misinterpreted what was going on and came up with these coping mechanisms that might have worked in that moment. But as an
Mm.
adult, like you see grown women and it's to carry in and out, like, I want to talk to the manager. I want to get it my way. Ah,
Yeah.
because when you were 3 and you had that tantrum, somebody gave you what you wanted and you learned
Wanted
that that's the way to
mm,
act.
that
Right.
that's the way to act. Yeah.
Right. So, but that does no longer serves you as an adult.
Hmm. No.
Right. So shadow work is trying to integrate that shadow part of the ego into it's like you've got your conscious and your unconscious,
Yeah.
right? So it's like trying to integrate the unconscious with the conscious so that you're not, these triggers, these acting out, these, like, I don't know why I react like that. Well, because
Yeah.
at some point in your life that got imprinted in there and you never figured out that wasn't the way. So that's what shadow work is, which is very similar to
It's
what we
really
do with the four
interesting.
step.
Yeah.
It really,
I like
really
that.
is. I
No, it really
look
is
into
because
it.
yeah, no, I will. That's really
Yeah. How do we get to the result of the 12 step without going through the 12 steps? And
steps.
shadow work is one of those ways I would recommend to somebody, because what are we doing? We're getting rid of the old. We're
Yeah.
facing it. We're pulling it up. We're calling it what it is, and we're getting rid of it.
Getting rid of it.
So that's pretty much what shadow work is, So
I love
I don't know
that.
why I felt the need to tell you all that,
No,
but
but I liked it.
I mean, that's what I need to do. I need to get somebody on here that can better explain it and make it
Well,
make
you did a good
sense.
job. I mean, and it
You
does.
know,
It talks, why we have the behaviors we have. I mean, I think the 12-step it touches on that when we do a fourth and a fifth
yeah,
step and we tell our life story and we go back in our life. But that's even more in depth of like, how did I develop, and I think by the process of ending up in jails, institutions, and death, right? It's like we end up in these institutions that you work in, that many work in, even in my institution, in the hospital. And we don't know why we are the way we are. We don't. We
right.
just think we're crazy. I thought I was crazy. I thought there was no hope for me, and until until recovery showed up, and it was like, okay, you're all like this.
Yeah, like
Okay.
right. We're all a bunch of brain damaged drug addicts. But now I have good credit. So
Oh,
that's a gift of recovery.
you know what I mean? Like when we actually pay our bills and we look around and we're like, yeah, I'm doing
Mhm.
this. All the adult things that, do not come easy
Yes.
in early recovery or in recovery in general. I'm still amazed that I'm acting like an adult on a lot of days, that I'm going to work,
Right?
that I'm paying my bills, that I'm being nice to people, that
Girl,
I'm,
I pay
you know,
property taxes. Amazing.
it is. It still feels like a dream.
What is the hardest part of staying sober today?
Life on life's terms, when things have arose in these last 3 years, or they, and they will continue to do, because that is what life does. There's always a small part of me, the demon part is definitely the demon, right? That's like, you're not going to be able to handle this, and you're not going to be able to handle this sober, and there's only one way to get through this
Mm.
because it's so painful that I got to numb it. I got to numb it, and those are, and change. I think change in general has always been difficult for me. So, which I
Oh,
guess
we
falls
fear
into like,
change.
oh yeah, I don't like change, and I think that's another, that's the strength we get in the rooms, right? Because we go to meeting, and I think that's another great additive to fellowship life, is that you go to meetings and you constantly see people go through things. Like my friend, 2 years ago, she lost her son to this disease, and just people
Mm.
losing their children, or death, divorce, all the big things that I was always like, that ever happens, I'm, you know, don't look for me because you know where I'm going to be. And uh, I didn't think, I think that's, yeah, it's just dealing with life on life's terms, and believing that God has me, and that I'm going to get through this. I think that's the big fat giant gift we get in recovery, is even though I know that, and I know that I can face anything with this program and with, my higher power at my side, I'm always going to have the fear because I spent so long in addiction that, oh, Kim can't handle this. Kim can't handle
Mm.
this. And that's why I just try to stay in today. I just try to stay in today.
And you'll be strong.
I don't
I, st-
know if I will, but I'm gonna try.
I know that you will. I know for you. Nothing's changed. I'm still driving. Get in the van. Let's go. 8:30 comes same time every day.
Everyone's like, okay,
Not everybody likes me. I'm all right. I will be strong.
yes, you will be strong.
I promise. So now when you hear this beautiful phrase, starve the demon, what does that mean to you personally?
I I think of that, the saying that we hear, dog, and you have your sober dog and your sick dog, and which one are you going to feed? And
Mm.
whichever one you feed is the one that's going to be stronger. And if I feed this demon, with if people, I think that's the thing, is like, sometimes you think I'm just starving the demon because I'm clean, because I'm abstinent. No, there's so much more for me to starving the demon. It's my behaviors. It's the maintenance of connecting, prayer, meditation, going to meetings, working with a sponsor, trying to give back, trying to do service. That's how I starve my demon. All of that together. It's not just being abstinent, because I can be, if I'm just abstinent and an asshole, then, the demon's not really starved. He loves that because he knows that the
Right.
behaviors are what's going to, he's going to wake up again.
Right. Because it's not the drugs and alcohol that feed the demon. It's the negativity. It's the fear. It's the hate. It's the resentment. It's the jealousy. It's the loneliness. That's what feeds it.
That's what feeds
right?
it.
And you take away the drugs and the alcohol, you don't take away any of that stuff,
No,
right?
still
That
there.
stuff might get worse, right? So I think you said that perfectly. Yeah, abstinence ain't going to get it.
No,
White knuckling it, being a dry drunk. That's what's
no.
that? Who are you helping?
You're
If you're
right.
going to stay miserable, go ahead, stay high.
Yeah,
I'm going
yeah.
to stay sober no matter what you do. Like, dude,
Which
yeah,
is
I'm going to stay
true.
sober. Go ahead. Yeah.
You do you. I'm gonna do me.
Right. Right. And, hopefully you live to tell the tale.
Hopefully.
What tools, what weapons do you use daily to keep your demon starved?
Definitely prayer. I start the morning with prayer. I read, you know, I read the daily reflection every morning just to, the minute I wake up out of bed, the demon's right there with me. So I gotta start feeding the sober dog as quick as I can because the thoughts come in just as quick as any that, we're taught to have a routine that is the best thing for us. So it's
Mm-hmm.
been working this long, so I'm not going to stop. Start with prayer, ask God for help. We're taught about the five things, right? In AA, prayer, read some AA, work, talk to another alcoholic, go to a meeting, and thank God at night. I don't get to a meeting every single day, but I try to do the other four things, every
Right.
day,
Right.
and
Well,
be,
if two people get together and talk about recovery, that's a meeting.
that's a meeting, you
Know what I'm
know,
saying?
and try to in gratitude, man, living, when I'm living in gratitude, a grateful drunk won't drink, and that psychic change always feels very close and very like palpable to me. It helps me see that world the way I want to see it and see others and see myself if I'm living in gratitude. I'm grateful for this
Right.
job. I get to go to work. I get to see my kids. I get to cook dinner. Do I feel like that every second of every day? Absolutely not. I get stressed out, irritated with everybody around me. But like
Not
we say,
you.
but that's why I say we practice these principles, man. I'm practicing. I'm never going to be perfect, but I'm trying to practice to starve.
We claim progress, not perfection. You are awesome. If you could go back and speak to yourself, what would you say to the woman you used to be before you got into this wonderful world of happy, joyous, and free?
Oh man, I'd probably tell her to hold on. It's going to be a bumpy ride. But she's, you're worth it, and this when I went to treatment and I met you this last go around, a big part of what's changed in my recovery for me and what I would tell her that I never seemed to get in my 20s and in my 30s that now I finally get in my 40s is that I remember hearing someone say, and I think it was Oprah, and I'm just going to give Oprah the credit. She was like, if you could take care of yourself the way you take care of everybody else. That was a coping mechanism for me in active addiction and trying to raise kids and putting on the masks. It was always even though I was feeding my demon and I was doing things on the side, I never thought I was enough. I never thought I mattered. And I would tell her that you matter, and it's okay to take care of you. It's okay to take that time. I had to learn, and
Absolutely.
it's not easy to say. It's another one of those ego busting moments. I am an addict. I am an alcoholic. I do struggle with outside issues. I have issues with depression and anxiety. I have to take a little extra care of myself. And this is not terminal uniqueness. There's a little bit more
Right.
that I got to do for me to function the way I want to function today as a sober woman trying to live by spiritual principles than Sally next door has to do that wasn't born with the disease of addiction and hasn't suffered with for 20 years. There's just a little extra I got to do here to just kind of like feel okay. And I
Right.
never wanted
Right.
to admit that. I didn't want to be different. But when I'm with you guys are all doing that too. I just want to be, I don't want to be better. I don't want to be less. I just want to be here. But to be here, it just takes a little extra. And it's okay to take that extra time to take care of me because I think I deserve it today.
Absolutely. What is one myth about AA or recovery that you would like to just bust that myth?
That it's a choice, that it's a moral dilemma, that it's a choice. I have a lot of, I think I have resentment still that I have to deal with when it comes to that. But, I think, the letter from Dr. Silkworth in the big book, there's a part of that that still grabs me to this day. And I'm not going to quote it right. And I can't tell you the page. I'm not that good of a big book thumper, where he's saying, this is what I would say to anyone that says, it's a choice. You're a piece of trash. How could you leave your kids? How could you choose, whatever it is, all the horrible choices. Well, we don't have choices when we're using. But he says to the reader of the big book, let you stand on the front line like me and see, the tears in the eyes, the blameless children, the depressed wives that in regards to them dealing with alcoholic men. And, that's coming from a physician. Don't, if you've
Mm-hmm.
never walked these shoes, if you've never truly had loved somebody that struggled with addiction, then, I would say, try to ask Dr. Google, get some
Yeah.
information,
Some
because
act right.
there's
Mm,
a lot of people sick and suffering, and you never know when it will be someone that you love.
that's
Please
true.
don't judge us for being less than or not enough, because not one, this is a genetic predisposition with all sorts of issues along with it, and it's not a choice. None of us would have chosen this, but we're so grateful that we have recovery.
I'm an asshole when I drink. I'm pretty cool when I'm not drinking. Some people are assholes whether they're drinking or not. At least I have a program.
Yeah.
I have a solution for my problem. I can't bother to be bothered. I got to keep it pushing. I got to stay sober today,
Yeah.
regardless of what anybody else does or doesn't do or what I think they should do. Who the hell am I? I want to be the person my dogs think I am.
Yes.
That's more than enough for me. Because my dogs think I hang the moon and make the sunrise. If I could be near as great as they think I am, that would be
That
awesome.
I'm doing pretty good.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Is there anything that you would like to say, any message that you have for your newfound fans? I'm sure you're going to have as soon as
Oh,
anybody sees this.
I would just love to, continue to share hope, man, because I was someone that spent a lifetime of feeling hopeless, of feeling that I was different, that I would never fit in, that I wasn't enough. um, I thought drugs and alcohol were my solution, and recovery is my solution. Being a chronic relapser, that's what I love about the rooms and the fellowship. They've never turned me away. They've never closed the doors. They've never said, "Oh, this is your 18th white chip. You can't come back." We're here for you no matter what. We're always,
Yeah,
AA always keeps the doors open and the lights on. It's what you choose to do with it next. Believe that we believe, right? Just a little bit. Even if you don't think you could ever get sober, even if you don't think you could ever go 5 hours, because I've been there. I didn't think I could go 15 minutes without putting a substance in my body, let alone one day, 1 month, 3 months. We have all been there. And if we did it, you can do it too.
absolutely. 1,000%. If I could do it, anybody could do it.
Amen. For
And I've
real.
heard that a million times over because
Yeah.
it's true.
It's true.
If I could survive the things that I have survived,
Hmm.
and that's another thing that we have to remember when we are lamenting about our past and what we've done and what's been done to us guess what? None of that's happening. That
Yeah.
already all happened.
Yeah.
And we survived it. You know how I could tell? Because I'm sitting here. Didn't kill me yet.
Talking to you.
So there's still hope.
Always hope. And
Yes.
that we carry the message of hope, if nothing else. And that can be in any form, right? And that's what I love about what you're doing. And I love you for it and thank you for it. That it's, yeah, we talked a lot about AA in the big book, man, but at the end of the day, it's like, it's just the hope that if I can get clean, you can get clean. And if I can be a better person, you can be a better person. And if I can carry this message
Yeah.
to anyone, one person, the rest of my life, then I did something. I did something that meant more to me than anything I've ever done. by just letting somebody know that you're not
Absolutely.
alone, and and we love you and we're here for you.
Yes, perfect. What is your favorite cliche?
Cliche.
What's your
Um,
motto that gets you through, that goes through your head?
one day at a time. You get so sick of hearing it at first, and I can remember being so new and right. What's the classic thing newcomers do? You want everything back right at once, everything you lost, everyone you ever hurt, you want it all back right away. And I can remember, time takes time and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, oh man, living 24 hours at a time, living one day at a time for me was just as important when I had 30, 60, 90 days as it is right now, because life keeps coming, man, and life's hard. Life is hard for me. I had really bad coping tools for a really long time. So it's going to take a long time to sort this out. As hard as that is for me, I just try to stay in today.
That is perfect. Kim, thank you so much for coming on Starve the Demon and telling your story, giving your message of hope, freedom, joy that can only come from recovery and from the hard work that you do. And again, being a nurse, you an angel, an angel. I can't think of a more noble endeavor. And if anybody hasn't told you today, thank you. And we are grateful for women like you out there saving the world. That's all we have for this show, guys. Love everybody. Let God sort them out. Stay strong. Starve that demon. See you next time.